And God said, "Let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the heavens." So God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God thought it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. Following the pattern that was discussed on day 4, God continues now to fill the heavens and the waters, of which he began to deal with on day 2 and completed in the first half of day 3. The Mayim will be filled, and the birds will fly across the face of the Rakia, of the Shamayim. The upper waters and the lower waters have their fill of creatures. Verse 21 contains the second instance of the term Yibara, of which the last time it was seen was in verse 1. It is quite interesting that the word create has not been used for 4 days, but it reappears now for the 5th day. However, it is what he created that is more intriguing to the modern reader. The first to be listed is the Tanninim, which comes from the term Tannin, of which some translation call the great sea creatures. However, this does not do it justice, as the word more refers to great sea monsters and sea dragons. Some will be quick to assume that this is in reference to dinosaurs. However, it should be noted that immediately after stating that God had created Tanninim, he also made every living creature within the waters. Dinosaurs were living creatures, and the author of Genesis seeks to distinguish between that which is living and the Tannim. There is more going on here than the modern reader may be aware of. What is interesting about the Tannin is that it is used as a literary device to describe chaos monsters in other books of the Bible. Monsters that other ancient Near Eastern gods had to fight, such as in the Enuma Elish with Tiamat. This is the first use of the verb bara since verse 1, perhaps emphasizing that the Tannin is not some primeval chaos monster that must be overcome, but a creature being given its role, just like everything else in its creation. Yet it ought to be viewed as a cosmic creature rather than a marine specimen. The biblical narrative uses this imagery in several places, with Leviathan as an example, such as in Job 3, 3-10, 41, 14-29, Psalm 74, 13-14, and Psalm 104, 26, or Isaiah 27, 1. While there are texts in the Bible that depict Yahweh smashing the head of Leviathan as a polemic, this text states that these chaos monsters are creations of God. They are good, meaning that they are not an equal force that oppose him. They are subject to him, and even if they try to act out against him, they are nothing in comparison to him. They do not need to be conquered and domesticated or killed by him in order to achieve his purposes. They were created and called good, but it is their acting out later on that brings about the term chaos monster. The text continues with the establishing of the living creatures that live in the waters and the ones that fly in the air. They are commanded to be fruitful and to multiply. They are to fill the waters and the earth. It is interesting that these creatures are given a command. It is part of their function to reside in their domains, of which are based upon the divisions established on days 2 and 3, and to fill their domain. However, another piece that is very interesting is the term nefesh chayah, living creatures, in verse 20, as this is also used to describe the land animals, and also what Adam was made to be in chapter 2, verse 7. There is a unique connection between man and the other creatures that God establishes between days 5 and 6 and further explored in chapter 2. There is the commonality of life held within all creatures, but man was designated as the ones who would have dominion due to their imaging. They would be the ones to rule, the ones to serve and worship God, the ones who would represent him here on earth. But these are the first living creatures, the first material beings to be brought forth into this good creation. The first ones to be able to reside in the waters and to fly around, but also cross into the land. And what's also fascinating is that God blesses these creatures. He blesses the birds, he blesses the fish, he blesses all of the living creatures, all of the ones who reside within their domain. They are given a blessing because they are part of God's good creation. And it is part of their blessing to be fruitful and to multiply, to fill the earth, of which is part of the whole issue that is stated in verse 2, that things were bohu. And now there are creatures in the world filling the creation. God begins by creating them to fill, and then he commands them to fill further. But he doesn't stop there. We now turn to day 6.